Hi, this is Lauren from Daisy Cottage Designs, and I'm here with a video tutorial for you today on this pom-pom beanie that you see in front of you. This is a really fun hat to make, and it works up quickly, and it makes a great gift for baby showers. So the pattern includes sizes from preemie all the way through adult extra large, and it's also very easy to customize the size if you have a size that you want to make for a person that you know the head measurements. So if you know somebody's head measurement, you'll be able to customize this hat exactly to their size. All right, so what you're going to need to get started is some worsted weight yarn and a J crochet hook or a 6mm hook. But the neat thing about this pattern is that it is completely adjustable. So if you would rather make this hat using a thicker yarn and a bigger hook, you can absolutely do that. Or if you'd rather use a lighter weight yarn and a smaller hook, you can do that too. It's totally adjustable. And the interesting thing is that it is made in a rectangle and then seamed together, and then you'll add this band at the bottom and cinch the top. So let me show you how we're going to do that. So what you're going to need is you're going to need your J crochet hook, some worsted weight yarn, you're going to need a ruler or a tape measure, and then you're going to need a tapestry needle to finish it off. So I have those things, and then you're going to need the size chart that is available in the pattern. So it's available on my website, which I will link to in the description, and it's also available in the ad-free PDF that's available on Etsy. So I have, preemie through adult extra large, and the hat width is the chain length that you're going to need to start the hat. Now, I said it's adjustable, so I don't give you a certain number of chains for each size, but what you are going to do is you're going to get your ruler or your tape measure, and you are going to chain the length that you need. So if we were making a preemie hat, we would chain until we got to 7.5 inches. But what you would need to do is you would need to make sure that you had an odd number of chains. So if you get to 7.5 inches and say you have 22 chains, you'll either need to take one away or add one to get to an odd number. Now, this is not, like an adult head. Small head is probably going to be about 20 inches or 20.5, but you want to go a little bit smaller so the hat has to stretch when you're putting it on. You don't want to just slide it right on. You want it to have to stretch just a little bit. Okay, so we are going to start and we are going to make a small sample together. So I'm not actually making a preemie size. I'm gonna go even smaller than that just so our video is a little bit quicker. Excuse me. So I am starting with a chain that is 5.5 inches long. And for me, I've used a J crochet hook and worsted weight yarn, and that was 17 chains. Now, based on how tightly you crochet, it might be a couple more or a couple less, but should be somewhere around there if you're using worsted weight yarn and a J crochet hook. But again, gauge isn't important because this is totally adjustable and you can make it with whatever yarn and hook you want. But the first thing you're going to want to do is start with your odd number of chains. And then the first row is just very simple. You're going to single crochet in the second chain and in each chain across. So you've started with an odd number of chains, but at the end of row 1, you're going to have an even number of single crochets. So I'm going to single crochet in the second chain, and then I'm going to single crochet in each stitch across. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then 16. So now I have my even number of single crochets. So now I have my even number of single crochets, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2 and turn my work. So when I start this first row of my mini bean stitches, this is a modified mini bean stitch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this first stitch and I'm going to work my first mini bean cluster in this stitch right here. So let me show you exactly how to do that. You're going to insert your hook into this second single crochet and you're going to pull up a loop. So there are going to be 2 loops on your hook, and you're going to yarn over and insert your hook into the same stitch and pull up a loop. There are going to be 4 loops on your hook, and you're going to yarn over and pull your yarn through all 4 of those loops. So you've made your mini bean stitch, and now you're going to chain 1. And we're going to skip the next stitch, and then we're going to mini bean and a stitch after that. So we're going to skip this stitch and work into this one. So you're going to insert your hook into that stitch and pull up a loop. There are 2 loops on your hook. Now you're going to yarn over and insert your hook into the same stitch and pull up a loop. There should be 4 loops on your hook, and you're going to pull through all 4 loops and then chain 1. Then we're going to skip this stitch right here, and then we're going to work our next mini bean stitch in the stitch after that. So we're going to insert our hook and pull up a loop. There are 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, can't get my yarn quite right, yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on your hook, so pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. So we're going to skip this next stitch, and then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch after that and pull up a loop. There are 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and insert our hook into the same stitch, pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on our hook, and we're going to pull through all 4 loops and then chain 1. We're going to skip that next stitch and then do the same thing in the stitch after that. So we're going to insert our hook and pull up a loop. We'll yarn over and insert our hook into the same stitch and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on our hook. We're going to pull through all 4 of those loops and chain 1. We're going to skip this next stitch and work the mini bean stitch in the stitch after that. So we'll insert our hook into the stitch and pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on our hook, so we'll pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. Then we're going to skip a stitch and do the same thing. So we'll insert our hook into the stitch and pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on our hook, so go ahead and pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. And now we'll skip this stitch and we'll mini bean stitch in the very last stitch of our row. Insert your hook into the stitch and pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch and pull up a loop. And now pull through all 4 loops on your hook and chain 2 to turn our work. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we have mini bean stitches all the way across, but between those we have chain 1 spaces. So we're going to be inserting our hook right under the chain 1 spaces, and then we'll work into all of those chain 1 spaces on our row. So we're going to insert our hook into the chain 1 space and pull up a loop. Then we'll yarn over, insert our hook into that same space and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on our hook, and we'll pull through all 4 of those loops and chain 1. All right, and here's our next chain 1 space. So that's where we're going to put our hook, right under that chain. So we'll insert our hook there and pull up a loop. There are 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and insert our hook into that same space and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on our hook, and we're going to pull through all 4 of those loops and chain 1. And we're going to do that in every chain 1 space across. So I'm going to work those. And then once we get to the end of the row, I'm going to show you where to work your last mini bean stitch. So I make my mini bean stitch and chain 1, make my mini bean stitch and chain 1, and make my mini bean stitch and chain 1. And now I'm at the end of my row. So you can see I have my mini bean stitch here, and then I have my chain 2 that I used to turn. So I am just going to insert my hook under the chain 2 at the end of this row. So right there where my finger's coming through, I'm going to insert my hook there and pull up a loop. I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into the same space and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on my hook, and I'm going to pull through all 4 of those loops. And then I would chain 2 and turn my work. And now in each chain 1 space across, I would make a mini bean stitch and a chain 1. And then at the end of the row, I would work my last mini bean stitch right there under the chain 2. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few more rows, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to finish your hat. Okay, so now I have my rectangular piece completed. So again, this is just a tiny swatch so I can walk you through the steps. And at this point, once you have your rectangular piece that measures the size that's shown on the chart, so if you were making let's say you're making a newborn hat and you want it to fit like a normal hat, not like a slouchy hat, you would make it 13.5 inches wide, you know, this way. And then you would want it to be 5 inches tall. And if you wanted it a little bit more slouchy, you could make it 6 inches tall. But once you had your piece that was that size, you would come back, or you would go ahead and make a tube. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fold your piece in half and line up the edges. Now, the most important thing to keep in mind is that you want your bottom to line up really nicely once you get to the end. So you're going to work your stitches along the edge, making sure that the bottom stays lined up the whole time. And what you're going to do is you're just going to insert your hook under both sides of this fabric and single crochet. So let me show you. So you see how I've caught some of the yarn on this side of my fabric, and I've caught some of the yarn on this side. And so now I'm just going to pull my yarn through and make a single crochet. And I'm going to work down the sides the same way all the way. So I'm going to pull my yarn through and single crochet. And I'm going to insert it through and single crochet. I'm going to insert it through. I've caught both sides, although I want to catch a little more on this side. And then I'm going to single crochet, and now I'm going to check my bottom and make sure everything's staying lined up. And then I'm going to just finish making a few single crochets. There is no science to how many stitches you need to have as you work down. You'll learn as you go where you like to make your stitches, and you'll kind of be able to see similar spots. And then once you get to the end, you're going to want to insert your hook under the first stitch and the last stitch. So it's kind of, you know, on this piece of fabric and on this piece of fabric, you're going to insert your hook and just the stitch that's closest to your seam. So I am going to insert my hook under the first stitch on this side, and then this, what I would call the last stitch on this side, and I am going to single crochet. And then, so this is your seam. You can see that I have my seam right there. Let me kind of flatten it out so you can see it. It's nice because it's not the same color on the variegation, so you can see where the seam is here. And this is going to be on the inside of your hat, so you're going to want to switch it, flip it, and you can see, let me show you the seam on this hat. So there is a seam that you can see, but especially once it's on, it's very hard to notice, all right? It's pretty hidden. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to single crochet evenly around the bottom of the hat to make this band. Now you can definitely do it in a contrasting color if you'd like to. For the sake of time, I'm just going to do it in the same color. But you'll just single crochet in that first stitch, and I would put a stitch marker there because we're going to work the band in spiral. I actually forgot to bring a stitch marker over here, but I would put a stitch marker there if I were making the hat, and then I would just single crochet in each stitch around. And try not to make those stitches too tight. All right, so just single crochet in each stitch around. And you can add a different number of rounds depending on the look that you're going for. I like somewhere between 3 and 5 usually, but on a teeny hat, I might only do 2, and on a large hat, I might do more. It really is just up to you and the look that you're going for. All right, so I have one more single crochet, and then I'm back at the beginning. And what I would do is I would just keep going. So where the stitch marker should be in this first stitch, I would just take the stitch marker out and make the first single crochet of my next round. I wouldn't slip stitch to join, and then I would mark that first stitch so that I can keep track of where I'm starting. But for our purposes, I'm just going to end with one round of that little border. I'm going to cut my yarn, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how I weave the ends when I'm finishing a hat band. So I have my tapestry needle here and I'm going to thread it. And what I'm going to do is, you see that I have these stitches that are real. I'm going to insert my tapestry needle under both of those loops from the back. And then I'm going to pull it around. And you can see it already is starting to look like a stitch. And then I'm just going to insert it down the middle of the previous stitch. All right, and I'm going to pull it, but you don't want to cinch it too tightly because then it'll pull tight and it won't look like a stitch. But you can see that by going underneath both loops and coming back around and going through the last stitch, it gives you just a nice finished look at the bottom of your work. Now to cinch the top, what you're going to do is you're going to turn your hat back inside out, and you are going to get some yarn. So I'm going to cut, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 inches for this size. And what you're going to do lay the long tail down over your hat and just start going from the inside and working into the chain 1 spaces, okay? So I'm just going to work around into the chain 1 spaces. And I'm coming from the inside on every one. All right, so there we go. And then I'm just going to take both ends and I'm going to pull tightly. Now, if you find that it's hard to cinch it and you're not able to close it all the way, you've probably gone into too many stitches. So you might want to just try every other chain 1 space, okay? So I'm going to do this and I'm going to tie it a couple times to make sure it stays tight. And then I would just go through and weave these ends and flip my hat back, and you can see that I have a finished teeny tiny little hat. And at this point, I would sew my pom-pom on and add my leather tag and have a really cute hat that I could sell or give as a gift. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, send me an email and I will do my best to answer it. Have fun with this hat and be sure to tag me on Instagram or Facebook if you share a picture, because I would love to see it. Have a great day and happy crocheting.